You know what makes a man's heart absolutely melt? It's not always the big, dramatic gestures that we often see in movies. It's not the perfect Instagram moment, and it's not about saying something rehearsed or overly polished. What really gets to a guy in the deepest way possible is when you show him genuine appreciation. When a man feels like the woman he's with truly sees him, not just for what he does, but for who he is, that is when his defenses come down and his heart opens up in ways he didn't even know it could. Most men don't go through life with people constantly telling them how much they're valued. In fact, for a lot of guys, they hear the opposite more often than not. They get told what they should be doing better, how they're falling short, or how they don't measure up to someone else's standards. And after a while, it makes them feel like nothing they do is good enough. That's why when you're the person who notices his effort, when you're the one who acknowledges what he brings to your life, it hits him on a level that no one else gets to. Let's say he fixes something in your house. It might be a leaky tap, something small, something he doesn't think twice about. To him, it's just practical, something he can take care of quickly. But when you stop him in that moment and say, "I love that you do things like this for me. It makes me feel safe having you around," suddenly, he's not just fixing a tap anymore. He's providing. He's protecting. And to him, those words mean far more than the action ever did. Because now it's not about the task, it's about the way you've tied his action to something meaningful. That moment of appreciation lingers with him long after he's put down the wrench. Or think about when he makes an effort in your relationship. Maybe he surprises you with dinner. Maybe he texts you something sweet in the middle of the day. Or maybe he simply listens when you've had a rough time at work. These might not feel like huge things, but if you pause to let him know, that text you sent earlier really made my day, or the way you listened to me last night made me feel so supported. You're amplifying the value of his actions. You're letting him know that the things he does, things he might even take for granted, are actually making an impact. The truth is, a lot of guys don't always know if what they're doing is enough. They may not say it out loud, but inside they wonder. And what you do when you show appreciation is silence that inner doubt. You give him a reason to keep showing up, keep trying, and keep opening himself up to you. Because now, it's not just about effort. It's about the reward of knowing it matters to you. And here's the thing, genuine appreciation doesn't mean you have to constantly flatter him or pretend like everything he does is amazing. It's not about exaggeration, it's about authenticity. Men can spot fake praise just as easily as women can. If you're just throwing out compliments without meaning them, it won't land. But if you really stop and think, what do I love about this moment? What do I love about what he just did? And you express that, it carries weight. Even if it's as simple as saying, "You always know how to make me laugh, even when I don't feel like it." That's enough to make him feel like the most important person in the world in that instant. One of the mistakes people make in relationships is assuming that because someone is strong, they don't need to hear it. We think, "Oh, he already knows I appreciate him," or "He knows I love him. I don't need to say it all the time." But let me tell you, no one ever gets tired of hearing they matter. No one ever outgrows being appreciated. Men, especially, can go their whole day without a single person affirming them. At work, they're expected to perform. With friends, there's often banter and teasing, but not always vulnerability. And so when he comes home, when he's with you, and you're the one who notices, I saw how hard you worked today. I just want you to know I admire that. That is the moment that sets you apart from everyone else in his life. Do you know what happens when you do this consistently? You create a space where he feels safe to be himself. A man who feels appreciated doesn't just work harder for the relationship. He softens. He becomes more affectionate. He wants to do more, not because he's being manipulated, but because he feels fueled by your gratitude. It's like oxygen for him. And the more oxygen you give him, the more he wants to breathe life into the relationship. And this is so important to understand. Appreciation isn't just about thanking him for what he does, it's also about acknowledging who he is. You can say, I love how thoughtful you are, or I admire the way you handle challenges, or I love that you're so passionate about what you do. These are not about what he gives you, but about the qualities that make him who he is. When you point out the essence of him, you're validating his identity, not just his behavior. That's what makes it powerful. Now imagine this, he goes through a tough day, things didn't go right. He's doubting himself, he's frustrated, he's questioning whether he's good enough. And in the middle of that, he hears from you, I believe in you. I know how capable you are. I've seen you handle difficult situations before, and I admire that about you. Do you realize how healing that can be? You're not just making his heart melt. You're strengthening him. You're reminding him of who he is at his best and giving him the fuel to keep going. But here's the magic. When you make a man feel appreciated, you also unlock his desire to appreciate you. Relationships thrive on reciprocity. The energy you give out comes back to you. So when you consistently show him that you value and respect him, you create an environment where he naturally wants to reflect that back. And before you know it, you're in a cycle of love, kindness, and connection that keeps getting stronger over time. So never underestimate the power of simple, genuine words. It doesn't have to be poetic. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Because when a man feels seen, valued, and appreciated by the woman he loves, it's not just his heart that melts. One of the things that has the power being to make a man's heart melt when he gives you the version of himself always what you say, no one else, but the little things you do that show him you've been paying attention. Thoughtful gestures, not the kind that require a big budget or weeks of planning, but the ones that prove he's on your mind, even when he doesn't expect it. When a man feels that level of thoughtfulness, it cuts straight through his walls, because what you're really telling him is, I see you. I think about you. I care enough to make the effort. You see, it's not about extravagance, it's about intentionality. A lot of people think romance has to be this huge thing, a weekend getaway, an expensive dinner, some grand surprise. And while those things can be nice, they're not what changes the way someone feels about you on a deep, emotional level. What really shifts something inside of him are the small, everyday acts that prove you've been tuned in to who he is. Those gestures tell him that he's not just a presence in your life, but a priority. Think about this. Maybe he mentioned weeks ago, in passing, that he loves a certain snack he had as a kid. He didn't make a big deal about it. It was just a casual moment in conversation. And then one day, without saying anything, you bring that snack home or leave it for him with a note that says, "Thought you might like this." Do you know what happens in his head? He realizes you not only listened, but you remembered. That little act of thoughtfulness feels like a spotlight on him. Suddenly he feels seen in a way he's not used to because most people in his life don't pay that kind of attention. Or maybe he's had a rough day. You can tell by his tone, his body language, the way he's a little quieter than usual. And instead of trying to fix it with words or asking a million questions, you just bring him his favorite drink, or you put on the show he loves, or you send him a text that says, "I know today wasn't easy, but I'm proud of you." These gestures may feel simple, but they carry weight. They tell him, "I notice your mood. I care enough to make it lighter." That is what makes him feel like he's not alone in the world. Sometimes it's as subtle as adjusting to his love language. If he loves physical touch, maybe it's reaching for his hand at a moment when he least expects it. If he thrives on words of affirmation, maybe it's sending him a message out of the blue reminding him how much he means to you. If he values acts of service, maybe it's taking something off his plate that's been stressing him. These things don't need to be dramatic. They just need to show alignment with who he is. And when you consistently do that, he feels like you're not just in a relationship with him, you're in tune with him. The beauty of thoughtful gestures is that they create emotional deposits in the relationship bank. Every time you do one, you're building a kind of quiet intimacy that can't be forced. Over time, those little actions add up to a powerful feeling for him. This person really gets me. And that feeling is addictive. That's what makes him keep coming back, keep leaning in, keep wanting to open his heart more. Here's what many people miss. Men often go through their lives not expecting others to do much for them. They're used to being the providers, the problem solvers, the ones who take care of things. And sometimes that role can make them feel unseen. So when you do something thoughtful, something that flips the script and takes care of him for a change, it disarms him. It melts away that constant pressure to always be the strong one. It tells him, you deserve care too. You deserve someone who looks after you the way you look after others. Imagine this. He's about to have a stressful week, maybe a big project at work, and instead of just wishing him luck, you slip a little note into his bag that says, "I believe in you. You've got this." He'll find it hours later, in the middle of all the chaos, and it'll stop him in his tracks. Or maybe he's been talking about how he needs a break, but hasn't made time for himself. And one day, you plan a simple evening in, his favorite meal, a movie he loves, and a chance for him to just relax without having to think about anything. That thoughtfulness doesn't just make him feel loved, it makes him feel understood. And it's important to realize thoughtfulness is not about doing things that you think are impressive. It's about doing things that matter to him. It's not about what would look good on social media or what others would consider romantic. It's about what actually touches his heart because it's tailored to him. A man can feel when something is done from the heart versus when it's done for effect. The former melts him, the latter just passes by unnoticed. What's also powerful about these gestures is how they create surprise and novelty in the relationship. When you go out of your way to do something he didn't expect, it jolts him into appreciation. It keeps the spark alive because he never quite knows when you'll do something small that makes his day. And it's those little jolts of delight that stop relationships from becoming stagnant. But perhaps the most beautiful part of thoughtful gestures is how they make him want to reciprocate. When he feels that energy from you, he's inspired to give it back. He wants to notice more about you, to surprise you, to take care of you. It becomes a cycle of thoughtfulness where both of you are invested in making each other feel valued. And that's how you build not just attraction, but longevity. Because at the end of the day, anyone can buy a gift, anyone can plan a date, but not everyone can make someone feel seen. And thoughtful gestures are the purest way of saying, I don't just love you. I notice you. I don't just care about you. I think about you when you're not around. I don't just want to be with you. I want to make your world a little lighter, a little easier, a little happier. And that's what melts a man's heart, not just in a moment, but in a way that makes him never forget how you made him feel. If you really want to know what makes a guy's heart melt, it's not just the way you look. It's not the way you flirt. It's not even the way you touch him. It's the way you connect with him emotionally, because physical attraction can get his attention, but emotional connection is what makes him stay. It's what makes him feel something he can't explain, something that goes deeper than anything surface level. And the truth is, most men don't get this kind of connection anywhere else in their lives. Think about it. In the world most men live in, they're not really encouraged to open up emotionally. They're taught to be tough, to keep it together, to solve problems, to not show weakness. Their friends might share a laugh, banter, maybe talk about sports or work, but how often do they actually sit down and talk about how they feel? Rarely. So when he meets someone who makes him feel safe enough to lower his guard, someone who makes him feel he doesn't have to perform or be perfect, that experience is rare. And rare things are priceless. Emotional connection starts with presence. It's about actually being there when you're with him, not half scrolling through your phone, not distracted, not waiting for your turn to speak. It's about really listening, like you're tuning in to more than just his words. You're paying attention to the tone, the pauses, the things he's not saying. When you give him that kind of focus, it makes him feel important. It makes him feel like in this noisy, chaotic world, there's finally someone who cares enough to truly hear him. And it's not just about listening, it's also about sharing. Connection is a two-way street. A lot of people think if they just nod and ask questions, that's enough. But what really builds intimacy is when you also open up, when you share your own feelings, your own vulnerabilities, your own stories. That's when he realizes this isn't just about him talking in to avoid. It's about two people weaving their lives together through trust. When you say things like, I've felt that too, or I know what it's like to go through that, you're not just sympathizing, you're aligning your experiences. And when you align, the bond deepens. One of the most powerful ways to build emotional connection is by showing him that he doesn't have to be perfect with you. So many men walk around with this pressure to have it all together, to know all the answers, to always be strong, to never make mistakes. And it's exhausting. But when you show him that you love his imperfections as much as his strengths, that's when he breathes easier around you. When he messes up and you don't attack him for it, when he admits a fear and you don't judge him, when he confides something vulnerable and you honor it instead of using it against him. Those are the moments when his heart softens. Emotional connection also comes from the little things you share. It's laughing at inside jokes no one else would get. It's remembering the tiny details of a story he told you months ago and bringing it up again at the perfect moment. It's the way you two can look at each other across a room and know exactly what the other is thinking without saying a word. These small threads create a fabric between you that no one else can touch. And that fabric is what keeps him coming back, because he knows he can't find it anywhere else. What a lot of people underestimate is how much men crave to be understood. Women often get labeled as the more emotional ones, but men have just as many feelings. They've just been conditioned to hide them. So when you create space for him to show you who he really is beneath the armor, it feels like freedom. He doesn't just feel like a boyfriend or a husband or a partner. He feels like a human being who's finally allowed to exist fully. And when you give someone that kind of gift, they never forget it. Sometimes connection isn't even about words. It's about silence. It's about being able to sit together without having to fill the space, without needing to perform, and still feel completely close. When he realizes he doesn't have to entertain you or impress you for you to want to be there with him, that's when he feels at home. That's when his nervous energy melts away and he feels something rare peace. And here's the beautiful paradox: the stronger the emotional connection, the stronger the physical connection becomes. Because once he feels safe with you emotionally, once he feels you truly understand him, his desire for you isn't just about attraction. It's about intimacy. It's about wanting to be as close to you as humanly possible, not just physically, but in every sense of the word. That's what makes him look at you differently, what makes him want to protect you, commit to you, and never let you go. The thing about emotional connection is it can't be faked. You can't pretend to listen. You can't force vulnerability. You can't fake presence. He'll feel it if you're just going through the motions. But if you really mean it, if you genuinely want to know him, to understand him, to connect with him, it comes through. It's in the way you look at him when he talks. It's in the way you remember the little things. It's in the way you care about what he cares about. And when that sincerity is there, it changes everything. This is why the couples who last are not the ones who just had the strongest spark in the beginning, but the ones who built the deepest emotional bond over time. Looks fade, sparks can flicker, but the connection, the feeling of being truly seen and accepted, that only grows stronger. And that's the part of the relationship that makes him melt again and again, even years down the line. So if you want to know how to get to a man's heart, stop thinking only about what impresses him and start thinking about what connects with him. Because when you create a space where he feels safe, understood, and accepted for who he really is, that's not just when his heart melts, that's when it belongs to you. One of the simplest but most powerful ways to make a man's heart melt is through open affection. And I don't mean just saying the words, "I love you," when it's convenient, or giving him a quick kiss on the way out the door. I'm talking about the kind of affection that is consistent, intentional, and real, the kind that makes him feel without a shadow of a doubt that he's loved, wanted, and cherished. Because when a man feels that from you, it reaches a part of him that nothing else can touch. Affection has this ability to bypass the logical part of his brain and go straight to his emotions. When you take his hand, when you wrap your arms around him unexpectedly, when you lean in close just because you feel like being near him, it communicates something words alone can't. It tells him, "I choose you. I want to be near you. You matter to me." And that makes him soften instantly. Men don't always get affection outside of their romantic relationships. Think about it. When was the last time you saw a group of men hugging each other regularly, or holding hands, or giving each other compliments? It doesn't happen often. For many men, physical and verbal affection is something reserved almost entirely for their partner. That's why your affection has so much power. It becomes his safe place, his home, his reminder that he is cared for in a way he doesn't get anywhere else. And it's not just about touch, although touch is incredibly important. It's also about the words you use. Saying things like, "I love being with you," or "You make me so happy," or "I'm proud of you," seem simple, but they mean everything. They're affirmations that go deeper than a casual compliment. They tell him not just that you admire him, but that you value his presence in your life. And when he hears those words, especially if he's not used to hearing them, it melts him. Affection also has the power to disarm him in moments of tension. Maybe you've had an argument. Maybe he's feeling stressed. Maybe there's a little distance between you. A gentle touch on the arm, a kiss on the forehead, or simply saying, "I know we'll be okay," can completely shift the energy. It shows him that love is still present, even in hard moments. That reassurance is powerful because it makes him feel like the foundation of the relationship is secure no matter what. And here's the beauty: open affection doesn't have to wait for a special occasion. In fact, it's most powerful when it's random, when it's unexpected, when it catches him off guard. Hug him while he's making coffee. Kiss him while he's in the middle of telling you a story. Text him during the day just to say, "Thinking of you." It's those little bursts of affection, sprinkled throughout your interactions, that make him feel constantly connected to you. There's also something deeply attractive about someone who isn't afraid to express affection openly. When you're unapologetic about showing how much you care, it creates an energy of confidence and love that draws him in even more. It makes him feel safe to reciprocate because you've shown him that vulnerability is not only okay, it's beautiful. And when he starts giving that affection back, it becomes a cycle that strengthens your bond. For a lot of men, affection is also tied to validation. When you show him love through touch, words, or gestures, you're not just being romantic. You're validating his worth in the relationship. You're telling him, "I don't just tolerate you being here, I love that you're here." That difference is huge. It changes how he sees himself, and it changes how he sees you. Sometimes affection is about the grand moments, holding him close when he's had a hard day, telling him how much you believe in him when he's doubting himself. But other times, it's about the small rituals, the way you say good night, the way you greet him when he walks in, the little traditions that only the two of you share. Those rituals become anchors, little reminders of the love you've built together. And they matter more than you might realize. It's also worth saying that affection doesn't have to be dramatic to be impactful. Sometimes the most powerful gestures are the quietest. Sitting close on the couch without needing to talk. Reaching for his hand in public without overthinking it. Resting your head on his shoulder when you're tired. These aren't huge, showy moments, but they communicate something profound. "I feel safe with you. I want to be close to you. I belong here." That's the kind of affection that melts his heart over and over again. And remember, affection isn't one size fits all. Part of showing love is learning the ways he best receives it. Some men melt when they're touched. Some melt when they're affirmed with words. Others melt when you do small things that show love in action. Pay attention to the way he lights up. Notice what makes him soften. And then lean into those gestures, not in a forced way, but in a way that's natural and consistent. Because when you give affection in the way he most needs it, it becomes unforgettable. Over time, What affection really does is create security. A man who feels loved openly doesn't feel the need to constantly prove himself or to question where he stands with you. He knows, without you having to say it every single second, that he's loved. And that security allows him to give even more of himself to the relationship. It frees him from doubt and makes space for deeper intimacy. And at the end of the day, affection is the bridge between love that's felt and love that's experienced. You might feel it inside, but unless you express it, he won't always know. Men aren't mind readers. They need to hear it. They need to feel it. They need to see it in action. And when you give that openly, it doesn't just melt his heart. It makes him feel alive in your love. Because when a man feels genuine, open affection from you, it's not just that he loves you. It's that he never wants to imagine a life without you.